Hi, I'm Bobbi Jo Gaetz, psychologist, and I am here to talk to you today about supporting children's mental health as they make the transition back to daycare through COVID-19. So the first thing that we need to recognize is all the changes that kids have already had to go through, and parents, with all of the changes with COVID-19, with the closure of the daycares in, say, mid-March, a couple of months ago, or 2.5 months ago now probably, and then closure of playgrounds. Then kids can't see their friends. They can't sometimes even see their grandparents. Parents are at home a lot of the time, if not all of the time, which is different. So all of those changes, and now we're asking them to go back to maybe a new normal, maybe not the same as it was, but maybe a new normal. And so a lot of the emotions that they were expressing with all of the changes that happened with the COVID closures, you may see again, or you may see an increase in those emotions as kids make that transition back to daycare. So some of the emotions or reactions that you may have seen when kids were at home and they weren't in daycare anymore could have been things like fear and anxiety around all of this talk about sickness, and maybe they even heard words like death and germs and all of those things that were being talked about. So that can create more anxiety and fear in kids and parents too. So you might have also seen some anger, frustration that, well, why can't I go play with my friends? And those kinds of things. Some even grief and sadness around all the things that they're missing. Friends, other family members, just even activities that they were missing that they got to before. Or maybe big events had to be canceled for kids. Maybe big trips, those kinds of things. So maybe some grief and sadness around that. You might have also seen increase in irritability, or just feeling kids seeming really overwhelmed with everything. And with all of that, you might have seen some regression for little ones around toileting or sleeping, or just not wanting to do things by themselves that they used to be able to do. And for older ones, some similar kinds of regression as well, or even just some clinginess or wanting to be around you more. So those are all the kinds of things that kids may have been experiencing or expressing with all the closures and changes with COVID-19. And that's no different than what they may express or experience now as they transition back. But there's some other feelings that I want to talk about that we can cultivate that will help build children's resilience and our resilience as well. And those are things like gratitude and hopefulness, because those are some things that can definitely come out of more scary situations, that we don't take as many things for granted. And as I think you've probably all seen on social media or wherever, that kids may look back at this time period as being one of the best times of their lives and really special because of all the fun things that they got to do, and they got to spend so much time with their families, while parents may not look back and think of it the same way. So those are some things that we're going to touch upon during this quick little video around gratitude and hopefulness, and how we can build those emotions versus the more scary emotions, and focus on those ones and focus on that positivity to build resilience. So, and I think that daycare is now starting to open up, and preschools are now starting to open up, and there's going to be some kinds of different fun summer camps and things, may create some feelings around fear and anxiety and feeling scared for children. And I think just some difficulties around separation that we'll talk about as well. But those same kinds of feelings for parents too, around, is it okay? Is it safe to send my children back? What's that going to look like? And just some fears and anxiety around that. But on the flip side, kids may be very excited to go back and see their friends and see their caregivers and see their teachers and be able to play and do some of those activities that they've been missing. Or they may feel all of that all at once. So some anxiety and some excitement all together. Just like parents may be feeling some anxiety combined with some feelings of being relieved, with maybe not having to juggle so many balls in the air right now, with having to try to work and parent and everything else that's been on their plate for the last, 2.5 months or so. Feels like forever, I'm sure. So, parents, you have been amazing doing all of this. And so you might definitely feeling some happy feelings jumbled all in there about things returning to some kind of normal where, you can take some of those things off your plate and share them with others right now. So when we talk about the feelings that kids and adults may be feeling, fear comes up, I think, a lot, just that fear and anxiety. So one way to combat fear and anxiety is to look at the facts and just have some information. So for parents, it'll be helpful for you to have information around what daycare is going to look like and what those changes are going to look like. And I believe directors will be sending or communicating that information somehow before kids start, and so that parents have that information to share with kids. And we'll talk about that a little bit too. And what that information, just like we were gathering information about COVID, now we want to gather information about what that's going to look like going back into daycares. So it might mean things like temperature checks, and some staff might be wearing masks, and all those kinds of changes. So we want to communicate that to children at a pace and a level that is appropriate for their age. Share facts only, try not to taint that with our own worries and things like that, so that we're not instilling fear in everything. I mean, the message that we want kids to have, and I guess us to have as the adults too, is that everything will be okay. And if it's not, then we deal with it at that time. But at this point, everything will be okay. Everything's okay. So we want to instill a sense of control in ourselves and a sense of control in our children. That's one of the best ways to deal with fear and anxiety, is to know what I can control and what I can't. So for children to maybe invent a new way to greet caregivers and friends rather than hugs and things like that. Could they do some silly animal sounds or things like that to say hi to others? With your kids, you can come up with all kinds of ways, and they can do that with their teachers too. And it also might help kids to know what they can do if they feel worries. So what to do with their worries that is proactive and productive. So things like washing your hands. If you're feeling worried about something, go wash your hands. That's one safe thing that you can do. Or talk to your teacher, talk to mom and dad, those kinds of things, to express that a little bit. And distraction is a really good tool for worrying too, so that if they do talk to somebody, their teacher or you as parents, that you can get them involved in an activity that will kind of take their mind off those worries a little bit. So some messaging that we want to give to kids around this is that I think going into daycares, that we can help to keep ourselves, our friends, and our teachers healthy by doing some things differently. And so just like I talked about, might be temperature checks, might be how we do greetings, might be that some staff are wearing masks, not all staff will be wearing masks, might be that toys will be washed after use, there might be a different place that kids need to put them that the teachers will help them with. So those are going to be things that they're doing differently. So we want to prepare kids for what might be different. Some rules might be different. Some of those routines might be different. There might be more spacing out in lines, at meals, but what things will be the same, we also want to focus on that too, is that kids will still get hugs and cuddles when it's needed. And caregivers are happy to see those children every day. They've missed them too. So that's something that will be the same. And that they will have friends to play with at daycare. That's going to be the same. So some tips: we want to avoid language. Specifically things like we don't want to tell kids what they don't do, what they can't do, what they're not allowed to do, or what is dangerous. Though that kind of language creates fear. And that's been my concern around all of this, is it sometimes can be too oriented on protocols, and instead not focused on children's feelings, children's development, children's reactions. And that's what I really want to focus on. So we don't want to send messages to children that's going to create fear. Children are not germ mongers, they're not dangerous, and going to daycare isn't dangerous either, according to the health officials that are telling us if we do these things, we can't eliminate the risk ever. Even pre-COVID, but we can definitely reduce the risk. And so far, I know that daycares have been open for a period of time. dealing with the children of essential workers, and I haven't heard anything about positive cases. So so those measures are effective. And but what we want to tell kids is what they can do. So they can still greet their friends, they can still greet their caregivers. Let's just do it a different way. So it's going to be more using that, let's do things differently than what we can't do or not allowed to do. And the staff are being trained on that same language as well. So that when they see children doing something that is not according to protocol, that they can handle that in a way that is, again, not going to instill fear, not make children feel like they're doing anything wrong, because they're just kids being kids. So that's around some of the language that can be helpful in addressing going back to daycare. One of the biggest things probably that parents will have to deal with is the separation anxiety. Children have been with parents 24/7 in lots of cases for the last 2.5 months. So it's kind of going to be like starting daycare all over again. So that'll take some preparation for kids and for parents as well. So some tips around that. I mean, you probably have already done that once, and so now you're going to do it again. It may not look the same as it did the first time when you transitioned kids into daycare. It may look a little different now just because stage and age of kiddos now, for lots of different reasons. So sometimes it's helpful for if you can transition gradually, so that rather than starting on a Monday and going full days, Monday to Friday, to be able to do that shorter days at first and gradually working up. That's not always possible, but that would be ideal. So if that's a possibility, then that would be recommended. If not, that's okay. Sometimes it's helpful for kids to take transition objects with them. So if they're feeling like they're really going to miss mommy or daddy, that they can take something that helps them, feel close to mom and dad. So it might be that you make a special bracelet that your child can wear to daycare, and that way they've always got it with them, and you can say that I'm close to you, this is how you remember that I'm close to you, I'm thinking of you, and I'm going to see you soon. So that's just something concrete. Those concrete things can be very helpful for kids, and they can be things, anything. It can be a special rock that they keep in their pocket. It could be something of mommy's or daddy's that they can wear. So some things like that. There may be some restrictions on what they can take, again, with the protocols, but again, you can work and problem solve around that to find something that will work. It might be a picture of their family that they can take. There's lots of different kinds of things. So after you pick them up from daycare, during that, I know there's sometimes not very much time left at the end of the day, but make sure, especially at the beginning, that you're increasing the time for connection with kiddos. That's what they're really craving or seeking from you during this time when they've had to be separated from you, is they want that connection time. So that can be something where you read a special story together, something like that. And at drop-off, it's nice to have a ritual. So if you had a ritual pre-daycare closure, go back to that ritual again and bring that back, so that kids know that that's kind of your thing. That's the goodbye routine that you have with them. If you didn't have one before, a book that I really like is called The Kissing Hand, and it talks about a little raccoon who's not so happy about going to school or daycare, and is feeling really sad about that. And so they talk about all the great things about what he's going to do there. And then when it's time for goodbye, mommy plants a big old kiss right in the middle of his palm that he gets to hang on to all day. So that's The Kissing Hand. And if you happen to get the book, there's even stickers inside that you can give to kiddos to help them with that transition. So that's just one way for kids to be able to hold on to you during the day, to help them feel a little bit more calm. Some other things that you can do in preparation for that separation anxiety is you start leaving your children now if you haven't been, and of course, safely. So if another adult is in the home and you can go for a walk without anybody, go for a walk. And it can be really short at first, and you can increase that if you have the time to work with. Or go get the groceries on your own. I guess we have to get groceries on our own nowadays anyway. But to do those kinds of things, to practice that separation in shorter bits beforehand. That can be helpful to get kids ready for that separation. Finally, for kids who are a little bit older, who are expressing some fears and anxiety around going back, it might be helpful for them to go for a visit to daycare and to see what's going to be different so that they have those questions answered. That takes some of that fear and worry away. Our anxiety tends to spin things that really aren't true, and it's usually the worst case scenario. So if we can show kids what it's going to look like, and they can go in and have a tour with their teacher or the director, and these are all the things that are going to be different, and again, help them focus on all the things that are the same. So it's not going to be a total change for them. That's where that gratitude, resilience, positivity comes in. We want to help kids focus on, what did you miss when daycare was closed? Well, those are the things you get to go back to. What are we grateful for? I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for there's caregivers that can't wait to see me. There's friends that really want to play with me. And then at the end of the day, maybe that's a connection ritual that you talk about. What was the best thing of your day at daycare today? What was the best part? So that you can focus on all those positives rather than, I really missed you, those kinds of things. Not that we can't say I really missed you, but for kids to be focused on that versus the positive things of their day, we want to increase that resilience and positivity by helping them focus on all the wonderful things that they are going to do beforehand and then that they did. Finally, so some final messages before I sign off are there's help for you. If you're struggling or if your kiddo's struggling with all of this, the directors and teachers at the daycare would be very happy to help you. I mean, they are experts in this field, and they can help you answer some of those questions, give you some recommendations and strategies that you can try. So talk to them, ask questions. If you're feeling anxious as a parent, give them a phone call, check in. I advise you probably not to go visit during the day because that's going to create a whole other separation time again, which is not ideal, but you can definitely call and check in as well. So the biggest message is that everything is going to be okay, and that's what we need to kind of focus on, is the positivity and all the resilience that we have and all the measures that we're going to take to help things be okay. And it might look different, but it doesn't mean it's bad. So thank you, good luck, and if you need help, please reach out.